Okay, today we're diving into a really disturbing case, one that makes you question how someone can live such starkly different lives. We're talking about John Wayne Glover.
That's right, the so-called granny killer. It's a chilling story.
Absolutely. I mean, on the surface, here's this guy, John Glover, married, father of two, seems like a friendly neighbor, even volunteers with seniors.
Yeah, living in Mosman, working as a sales rep for 4 and 20 Pies, just seemed like a regular guy.
But underneath that, a completely different reality, convicted of murdering 6 elderly women aged between 60 and 93.
All within about 14 months across Sydney's North Shore, 1989 to 1990. The brutality is just stark.
So our goal here is to really get into the source material, try to understand the shocking duality. How did he operate? What was the pattern? And how was he eventually caught?
And particularly that contrast, the friendly volunteer versus the killer. We need to look at the violence, the psychology, maybe even how he tried to manipulate the investigation itself.
Right. So let's start before the murders really kicked off in '89. Because this didn't just come out of nowhere, did it? There's a history.
No, definitely not. Glover had a background going way back. He was originally from Wolverhampton in England, working class family, left school pretty young, around 14.
And the records show criminal activity quite early on.
Yeah, back to 1947. Petty stuff mostly back then. Stealing clothes, handbags. But it's a pattern, isn't it? Targeting certain items.
And then he comes to Australia, mid-50s.
Around 56 or 57. And things seem to escalate here. By 1962, in Melbourne, he's got actual assault convictions against women.
Right, I saw that. Assault, indecent assault, causing actual bodily harm. It's a clear escalation in violence towards women.
Exactly. And he only got a good behavior bond for that. But the pattern is there decades before the murders.
So what about his personal life? The sources mention relationships with older women being difficult.
Extremely difficult. It seems he had a very troubled relationship with his own mother, Frida. And then there's his mother-in-law, Essie. He married in '68, lived with his in-laws. Okay, and apparently there was massive resentment built up towards Essie. Her death seems to be a key point, almost like a trigger for what happened later.
So Essie dies, and then this spree begins when Glover is 56. But the first few incidents weren't immediately seen as connected, were they?
Not at all. They were treated as, standard muggings. Like in January '89, Margaret Todhunter, 84 years old, punched, robbed of about $200.
And what did he do with the money?
Straight to the Mosman RSL Club. Blew it all in the poker machines. Which becomes a recurring theme. Police just logged it as a robbery.
Then, March '89, Gwendolyn Mitchell Hill, 82.
Same pattern. Followed her from the same RSL club, killed her with a hammer, stole about $100.
And this is where something awful happened with the crime scene.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. Neighbors found her, thought she'd just fallen. So they cleaned up the scene before the police got a proper look. Destroyed potential evidence.
Oh, wow. So, again, police are thinking maybe just a mugging gone tragically wrong. No task force yet.
Not yet. They were sort of flying blind. That really changed in May '89 with the murder of Lady Winifreda Ashton. She was 84.
What happened there?
Attacked in her foyer, dragged outside, hit her head, then strangled with her own pantyhose. He even arranged her walking stick and shoes near her feet.
Okay, that's methodical. Chilling.
Exactly. And this is the turning point for the police. Now they see it. 3 elderly, wealthy women, same area, similar attacks, superficially robbed.
But the robbery wasn't the main point, right? You mentioned something about a ring.
Yeah, Lady Ashton's valuable diamond ring was left on her finger. That told police this wasn't just about theft. The violence was primary. Now they knew they had a serial killer in their hands.
And around this time, Glover starts doing something else really disturbing, involving nursing homes.
It's bizarre. He starts impersonating doctors or staff, going to nursing homes, and molesting elderly patients.
While the police are actively hunting a serial killer targeting the elderly.
Yes. It shows this incredible, almost unbelievable level of boldness. Like he felt untouchable. Pushing boundaries, maybe?
It's hard to comprehend. So the actual murders then pick up pace again later in '89.
They do, rapidly. October, November, Margaret Pahood, 85, in Lane Cove, attacked after he offered to help someone with groceries.
And the crime scene.
Same problem again. Neighbors apparently washed it down. Glover took $300, went straight to the Mosman RSL.
Unbelievable. And then another one very soon after.
Within 24 hours.
Yeah.
Olive Cleveland, 81. Forced into a lane, head pushed into concrete, strangled with pantyhose.
Yeah.
The reward money jumped up significantly then to $200,000.
The public must have been terrified.
Absolutely. Panic setting in across the North Shore.
But the next victim, Muriel Falconer, she was 93. Her case finally gave police a real break.
Yes, thankfully, November '89. She was seen near a police station, ironically. Glover followed her, hammer attack, strangulation with undergarments. But this time, crucially, the scene was preserved.
What did they find?
Clear, bloody shoe prints.
Mm-hmm.
They could finally start building a physical profile. Middle-aged man, a bit heavy-set. The net was starting to tighten slowly.
So the investigation is finally getting traction. What was the big breakthrough?
It came in January 1990,
Mm-hmm.
and it was almost brazen. Glover, actually wearing his 420 work uniform, went into Greenwich Hospital.
Into the hospital.
Yeah, into the palliative care ward. He assaulted an 82-year-old cancer patient, Daisy Roberts, while he was supposedly doing his pie delivery rounds.
That's audacious, doesn't even cover it.
Right, but a nurse saw him fleeing, confronted him, and crucially, she got his car registration number.
Ah, finally a concrete link.
Exactly. Hospital staff knew him their regular pie guy. Suddenly, the description, the Mosman connection, the job, it all clicked with this registration number.
So police track him down through his work?
They do. They contact him, arrange an interview, but he doesn't show up.
What happened?
He attempted suicide. Police found him at Royal North Shore Hospital, and that's where they got the piece of evidence that just blew the case open.
Not forensic evidence.
No, it was handed to them. His suicide note, written on company letterhead, 420 Pies letterhead.
And it said.
Chilling stuff.
Yeah.
Phrases like, no more grannies, grannies. And the really key line, Essie started it, referring to his mother-in-law.
Wow. So that's basically a confession, right? Linked to the trigger.
It confirmed he was their man, absolutely. But here's the tricky part. They still didn't have much hard forensic evidence directly tying him to the murder scenes themselves because of those early issues.
Right, the washed crime scene.
Exactly. One detective basically said if Glover had just clammed up and refused to talk, they would have had a very hard time proving anything conclusively at that point.
So they couldn't just arrest him based on the note.
He needed more. So they put him under surveillance, and Glover knew it. He's trying to shake them off, driving erratically down one-way streets the wrong way, things like that.
A real cat and mouse situation. They had to wait for him to make another move.
Which, tragically, he did, March 19th, 1990. The surveillance team watched him go into the house of Joan Sinclair. She was 60, a friend of his wife, actually.
They watched him go in.
They waited. Hours passed. Eventually, they had to breach the house. They found her body inside, battered head, strangled with pantyhose,
Sinclair.
found unconscious in the bathroom.
Yeah.
He'd filled the tub, slashed his wrists, taken an overdose. But this time, they had him at a primary crime scene. With the victim, the game was finally up.
So the trial must have been intense. What was the main argument?
It all boiled down to his mental state. The defense went for diminished responsibility. They argued he had this deep-seated psychological issue, this displaced aggression.
From his mother and mother-in-law.
Yeah, that after Essie died, this hostility got projected onto other elderly women, and he couldn't fully control it. That was their angle.
But the prosecution pushed back hard on that.
They did. They painted a picture of calculation, not compulsion. They brought up the fact that he cleaned his hammer with acid.
Acid. Wow.
To destroy trace evidence, like blood or hair. That's not the action of someone out of control. That's someone consciously covering their tracks.
And they had a theory about the strangulation method too, right? The pantyhose.
Yes, this was a really dark, cynical argument from the Crown. They suggested the primary motive wasn't sexual at all. Glover was apparently impotent.
So why the pantyhose? Why make it look sexual?
Their argument was it was a deliberate trick to mislead the police, make them focus on a sexual motive, maybe hide the fact that it was often about getting quick cash for his gambling addiction.
Wow. Using the MO itself as a red herring.
Precisely. Was he driven by uncontrollable urges, or was he a cunning thief using the appearance of compulsion as a shield?
What did the judge decide?
Justice Wood sided with the prosecution's view. He called Glover exceedingly dangerous, highlighted his cunning, his opportunism. He sentenced him to life imprisonment with the explicit direction never to be released.
And he spent the rest of his life in prison.
Yes, mostly at Lithgow Prison. He was put on suicide watch for a period in 2005.
But he still managed to.
He did. He was found dead in his cell, suicide by hanging, on September 9th, 2005.
Even in death, though, there was one last strange detail, wasn't there? The sketch.
Ah, yes, the confession sketch. Shortly before he died, he gave a visitor this drawing. It looked like pine trees, but hidden in the branches.
It was the number 9.
Exactly. And the speculation, pretty strong speculation, is that this represented the actual number of women he believed he'd murdered. 9, not the 6 he was convicted for.
Which ties back to what you mentioned earlier about potential links to older unsolved cases from decades before.
It does. There were cold cases involving elderly women back in the 60s that some investigators thought might have been him. That 9 adds a lot of weight to those suspicions.
It really leaves you thinking, doesn't it? We know he had this long history, decades of escalating behavior against women theft, then assault.
Which brings us to a really crucial question for you, the listener, to consider. What can we learn from this whole tragedy? How do we get better at seeing these patterns?
Right. How does law enforcement, how does society connect these seemingly separate dots of criminal behavior over decades before it explodes into something like the granny killer spree?
It's a terrifying lesson, really,
Yeah.
about the potential cost of missed signals, of failing to connect behavior that's maybe hidden in plain sight until it's far too late.